Welcome back to CMB Connect, the podcast for candid conversations with mortgage leaders. I'm Val Buresh and I'll be your host today. Welcome to CMB Connect. I'm your host, Val Buresh, and today we have the pleasure of welcoming Danielle Swerczek, a senior account manager with MGIC, and Danielle is a newly minted certified mortgage banker. Danielle, welcome to our CMB Connect show.
Thank you, Val. I'm really excited to be here. This is great.
Well, I'd love to start by, first of all, again, congratulating you for achieving your CMB designation. This is really an impressive accomplishment and well done, super well done. This shows commitment to the industry. But I want to ask you what motivated you to start to pursue this prestigious certification and what value has it brought to your work?
Sure. So I had earned my AMP. And after I earned that, I really felt like it was unfinished. And I knew there was another level that I could accomplish. And I like a good challenge. And for that reason, I was talking with my regional manager who got me involved in everything. And he really motivated me to start to pursue it. He was talking about being able to teach at a university. And I said, wow, that'd be great. I would love to do something like that at UNL. And because I live in Nebraska, and he said, you need to get your CMB. And it really just sort of motivated me to take it to the next level. I am hoping, since I am so new at it, I'm hoping that it will take me in different directions. I think it's new yet. So I would love to sponsor somebody and really just give back to the way my sponsor gave back to me. But on another note, it does give you some credence and respect for those in the industry that do understand what the CMB is and either have gone through it or they're involved in the MBA and they understand what those initials are. And for that, I feel really good about achieving that goal for myself personally and professionally.
I love your interest in teaching and giving back. I think this is such a important function that we can do because with every generation, we have to educate and pass our experiences to the next generation. I love your focus on universities and
Yes.
teaching there.
Yeah.
I looked up your bio on LinkedIn and I saw that you mentioned that you have a very broad experience, diverse experience, deep experience in the real estate industry across different areas. But what sparked your interest in specializing in private mortgage insurance? You've been in the private mortgage insurance world since 2015, right?
Correct.
So what sparked your interest in this, and how has the previous experience in title, escrow, and so forth, how does that shape your approach in the PMI world?
Sure. I was looking for an opportunity for the second half of my career, really. And through relationships, this opportunity came with an introduction to somebody at MGIC. And for that reason, I met with them. It felt like a really great opportunity for me to, in the right time in my life, professionally and personally, to change career path a little bit, still in the business, just a different part of the business. And it allowed me to get into more what I say I'm naturally probably good at, which is just building relationships. And that turns into more sales. And so it was a great opportunity for me that I got to take on with MGIC. And I'm really grateful that I'm here. The other thing it has allowed me to do is, through the CMB, achieving my CMB, it's really fascinating to see how siloed we become in this business. And for that reason, it's great to understand the big picture, the big story of what we actually do as professionals every day. And so I'm just grateful to be here. And MGIC is a great company. So.
Yeah, well said. And that's what we're doing. We are trying to break a little bit those silos, share our experiences with each other, and learn about each other's jobs. So with that, can you describe what is the job of a PMI account manager?
Sure.
Can you describe a day-to-day? What
Sure.
does your day look like?
It's all over the place, right? As most salespeople are. It's a lot of struggle with time management. And as salespeople, sometimes that's hard, right? Because we like to be out and about and we can be easily distracted. And I'm kind of stereotyping here, but I think, we all joke about that as sales professionals. But, most of it is just really searching for people that we can build relationships with, people that appreciate the value of what mortgage insurance can bring, helping them structure loans. Most people always divert to the monthly insurance, which is the most common in the industry, which is totally fine. There's other opportunities, though, that sometimes you can structure a loan differently to save the deal. And so it's always good for us to be able to help people through that transactional part of it. But a lot of it is just building relationships, staying in contact with people. I do a lot of training. That's one of the value adds that MGIC can bring. And it can be training on, simple soft skills. It can be very technical skills. And then just being a student of the industry so that you're always keeping up to date on what's going on.
Are there any unique skills then or qualities that you need to have to be successful in the private mortgage insurance job? Is there anything specific about the PMI job that is different from other jobs in the
I think
industry?
that's a great question. And I think it's always evolving, right? So I think that has evolved and changed over the years. As a student of the industry, like I said, we're learning every day, but sometimes we have customers that will reach out to us and it's not PMI related at all. It might be a hot topic that's going on Capitol Hill and they're looking to us as industry professionals. And I'm grateful they're calling me to ask those questions. And so I think it's more about being siloed in mortgage insurance and really understanding what's going on. Because sometimes communication at lenders or other places that you're talking about, maybe they get bits and pieces of that information, but they look to us to say, hey, what do you know about, say, the NAR settlement or other things that are going on? And so it gives you a good opportunity. If you stay up to date on those things, it gives you a great opportunity, again, for them to look at you as a professional and say, wow, she's really a craft of her business. She's refining it every day. And so I do, I do listen to a lot of podcasts that come out like this. But I think it's also just building relationships. You have to be really energized by talking to people. I think you have to listen more than you talk. And sometimes as salespeople, we want to show up and we want to tell them everything that we can do for them. And honestly, if you don't listen to what their needs are, maybe that's not important to them, but other things are important if you just listen to what their needs are and what's important to them. So I think it's being more well-rounded instead of just very siloed about mortgage insurance.
And you already started touching upon building relationships, and you said that you're good at this, you're known for this. But do you have some secret sauce, some specific tactics or approaches that you can share with us? How you connect? How do you build trust? You already began to mention that, but if you can kind of clarify it for us.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's hard to clarify, right? I mean, part of it is just, I grew up with two grandmothers that lived into their 90s and they both were salespeople. I mean, it's amazing. And at a very young age, my dad transferred around a lot for his job. So I was kind of forced into making relationships and friendships. And I think it just comes really natural to me. And so, again, I think it's back to being very authentic to who you are. And when you're talking to people, again, you're listening, you're providing feedback, whether it's personal things they're talking to you about or professional things. One of the most common questions we get through the downturn is just, what are you hearing from everybody else? And it's important to be that person that can, because you are talking to your customers every single day and building those relationships, that you can authentically answer that question. And for the most part, everybody's experiencing the same things, but maybe there might be something unique to a market. And people like to understand what that is, but they also like to understand that, oh, hey, I'm beating myself up today, but guess what? Everybody's going through the same thing. And so there's kind of that not feeling alone. So it's good to just have those conversations with people so that you can relay it to customers when they're asking questions.
And there is a balance between being a trusted advisor and then just driving sales. It's a very fine balance, very fine line. How do you manage that?
Well, I definitely, beyond just mortgage insurance, it's about bringing value, the with them, what's in it for them. And so I always want to make sure that when I'm talking to customers, I'm understanding what's important to them. I mean, maybe what's important to them is if they call me with a scenario question, then I'm going to return their call. I mean, it could be as basic as that, or, hey, we have a scenario, not sure if mortgage insurance would even qualify for this loan. Can you help me? Now, sometimes those questions are hard to answer because we do really need to see the whole big picture of a file. But, just being able to reach out to me or MGIC is, people appreciate that, but you really have to understand what their needs are as opposed to just trying to sell them on something. Again, what's the with them? What's in it for them? And then you can really tailor your sales call to that individual or that team that you're presenting to.
When you're talking about clients in from PMI perspective, these are professionals in a lender's organization, and what kind of roles do they have? What teams are you talking to?
Yeah, it could be very diverse. It could be the C-suite people. You literally could be talking to loan officers. You really want to get to and maximize your time with who's being the decision maker. So it could be loan officers, it could be underwriters, it could even be, some institutions, processors might actually order that mortgage insurance. And so, or make the decision, I should say. A lot of processors do order it, but you really want to make sure that you're maximizing your time to get to the right people. So you do have to be very diverse. I mean, if you're talking to processors or if you're talking to the C-suite, how can you tailor your conversation to benefit those people that you're talking to?
Well, can you walk us through your sales process? How do you identify opportunities? How do you educate potential clients? And how does a deal get ultimately closed, a PMI deal?
So the sales cycle is really depending on the relationship you have with the customer. It could be you kind of have your routine down, or it could be something new. So when I'm introducing myself or calling on somebody new, because you can gain a lot of access and information from the internet through LinkedIn. So you always want to maximize the opportunities and do a little background check on who you're calling on.
Right.
But if it's a new customer, I don't like to email them first. I do like to call them. And if they don't answer, then I will leave them a voicemail, follow up with an email later. And 9 times out of 10, they'll respond to the email. And I really just am trying to get an appointment so that I can get to know them and see, again, what is important to you? What does your business look like? Is there a fit that I can help them with? And so I structure my phone calls with an agenda, right? So you don't want to just go in there and, although I love sports, I love talking about sports all day long, but you want to be able to come in with something that is, again, the with them. What's valuable to them? What can I bring into them that is going to resonate with them? So if they're a CRA lender and they're really focused on Hispanic homeownership, I want to make sure that when I go in there, I know the value adds that MGIC can bring with Hispanic homeownership, maybe have some data with regards to that. And then you can tailor your phone call around that. So it's really important to just do a little bit of homework. I mean, those things don't take long, but it's important for them that you did the research and did the background so that you can make it effective for them.
That's a very good point. And I'm all for research and bringing
Yeah.
something of value. In that process, do you encounter any misconceptions still about PMI, or do your clients completely know what's going on at any point? Are there any misconceptions left about PMI in your work?
Misconception really depends on who you're talking to, right? So as a consumer, a lot of them still think that you need 20% down. And that's probably a generational thing, right? Because it's not your mom and dad's mortgage insurance anymore. And so it's incumbent upon the professionals in the business to make sure people understand that you can buy with 3% down. There's lots of opportunities to still buy homeownership. And we as professionals have to make sure that we are doing right by those borrowers. And if you're talking to lenders, I think lenders just feel like all companies are the same. And so it's really my responsibility to make sure that they understand why we're different and the value that me as a account manager can bring to them and their organization. And so it's all about, again, it's all about education and also making lenders realize, you are out there trying to earn business too. And so honestly, we're in the same boat. We're honestly in the same boat. And, maybe that lender doesn't win on every deal. Maybe they get shopped and they go down the street. But what is it that they're saying to their customer that's making them win the deal? And so it's the same for us. What are we doing? What's the value we're bringing so that we can earn the business and win that deal?
Can you have, let's say, 3% down loan without mortgage insurance? If, for example, let's say it's a credit union or a small community bank that have some mission purpose and they decide not to have mortgage insurance, is that possible? Or every mortgage has to have mortgage insurance, whether it's in portfolio or sold to investors?
Sure, it depends. If it's a 3% conventional product that's being sold on the secondary market to Fannie or Freddie, then that mortgage insurance would be required in some capacity. Could be
Right.
monthly, it could be a split, could be a borrower single, could be a lender paid, but in some capacity if it's going to the secondary market. But sure, to your question, could there be situations on conventional loans where there's no mortgage insurance? Yes, depending on, if they keep it in their portfolio, if they're comfortable with that risk, absolutely. That's a possibility.
That makes sense. Thanks
Yeah.
for clarifying. So, you have had a long career in mortgage lending in the real estate world and also in the private mortgage insurance industry. So, from where you stand now, how do you think the PMI landscape has evolved over the time span of your tenure in this industry? And um, what do you do to stay ahead of the curve in this
Sure.
industry?
Yeah, it has evolved and it has changed, kind of like we just talked about. And it's really changed in the pricing because it's a lot better pricing now with mortgage insurance, to the point where some people, if mortgage professionals showed them what that cost would be monthly or whatever that cost looks like, some people will choose to keep their cash, right? Because we're in a society of HGTV where we get a brand new house in an hour. And so people want to come in, they want to remodel. And so if they can put less down, if they have 20% and a lender shows them, oh, you could keep 10,000, do that remodeling, and it would only cost you X amount each month. That could be a trend as long as we're educating the borrower on that and giving them the option to do that. So I think you'll continue to see that risk-based pricing, which came out several years ago. If that risk-based pricing continues to be refined and the affordability for people, I think it's a great option, even if they have the 20% down. As far as staying ahead of the curve, as an industry as a whole, obviously, we're always trying to stay ahead of the curve and no matter what you do in this business. And so with mortgage insurance, there's a lot of technology that plays into it. And so we're just making sure that we always have a seat at the table, whether it's technology or a lender that's going to make big decisions. And again, just trying to add that value and help them so that they can grow their business.
You mentioned it already that you bring value to your clients by researching a little bit. So, in a way, market knowledge is power in your profession. And you also mentioned in your bio that you focus on specific regional market: Minnesota, Nebraska, South and North Dakota. There are about almost 10 million people who live there and over 3.8 million households. So, this is a fairly large market. So, how do you approach understanding the unique needs and the challenges in this market, actually, of the people who would be taking mortgages?
I think it's a lot of education, right? I mean, you are trying to understand what's important in that geography, what the challenges are specifically. There's research, there's access to information. The MBA is a great resource, a website, and some of that information that they have can be drilled down to state specific. So you always want to make sure that you're in the know, because there might be something unique and different to a certain area. Also, I follow social media with the newspapers of those areas that I cover. That way, if something's happening, I know what's going on, whether that's, flooding, for example. So,
Mhm.
my area, there's a lot of flooding going on. So it's important for me to know those things because when I'm talking to my customer and, they might be affected by that personally, then I can talk about those kind of things. And it might be a little thing, but it's important to them. And that's what's going on in their life right now. And so I do think it's important to understand the different markets. And, some segments might focus on different ethnic groups than others. And so it's important to understand what that looks like from a cultural perspective and then be able to help them either build their business with that culture or see what we can do to help them with materials maybe we can provide.
It's such a smart way of keeping yourself on the pulse of what's happening by following the newspapers, and
Sure.
that's probably helps them as well. So it's
Hmm.
this kind of an ecosystem. But so you mentioned that this is one way that you keep yourself informed about market trends, regulations. But how about competitor activity? What kind of best practices do you have to share with the rest of us? How do you get your competitor insight?
I think, that's a fine line, right? With competitors, for the most part, it's maybe asking your customer, what are you hearing from our competitors? Is there anything that I should be aware of? And then that conversation can start from there. There's over 30 salespeople at MGIC that are across the United States. And so there's always kind of back and forth with information that's going on. And I'm sure with them too, they're sharing information they might hear from MGIC. And so I think it's just important to stay relevant as to what your competitors are doing. But I also think it's very important to focus on what you can control. And what I can control is earning that business and what's important to my customer.
How do you leverage this, your understanding about the markets, to tailor your sales approach and provide the most value to your customers? How do you make that connection between market insight to action and value for your customers?
So again, it comes back to just researching, understanding what's going on in those markets. I'm not sure I'm going to totally answer this correctly or what you're looking for. But yeah, I mean, we have access to information, right? So we can see, for example, how much volume a company has done, right? And then we can take that and our action would be, okay, how much FHA did they do? How much conventional business do they do? Because maybe they do a lot of volume, but it's all FHA. And so you want to gain that insight and see, is there an opportunity where they could do more conventional and then I can earn that business? And so I think it's always evolving depending on your customer, depending on your geography, but you do have to have that insight, that information, like what your company provides, Val. So otherwise you're just shooting in the dark. If you don't have data and numbers and units that you can look at to make your day most effective, it can be really difficult to make sure you're calling on the right people. And you can also, when I'm meeting with customers, I might say to them, who do you compete with the most often? Who in the community are you constantly competing with? Is there anybody, or are you the top one? And some counties can get reports. And so they'll show you where they stand or where others stand in the community of the filings at the courthouse. And so again, it's just knowledge with all that data and information that you can retrieve however you feel like is beneficial to you.
Excellent. I love this.
Okay.
You mentioned that, and we spoke already about that. We determined this. You're passionate about helping others in the bigger mortgage industry, real estate industry. Can you share some advice or insight to help someone who wants to enter the private mortgage insurance industry as a young professional, or perhaps it's more mid-career that they want to make that change?
Sure. I think it's really important when you go into a sales position that you really understand internally what motivates you. And so for me, the motivation really is people and those relationships. And sales it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. And so patience has to come along with that. I think honest communication. I remember calls when I first started, people asked me questions like, I don't know. But you know what? I have a lot of people that do know, and I'm going to get back to you right away. And the fact that I would just be honest with them and not give them answers made up. Because when I started, MGIC's been around for over 65 years. I mean, my customers knew MGIC better than I did, in some cases. And so being honest with them and transparent about, what, don't know, but guess what? I'm going to ask the question. You and I are going to learn together today. We're going to learn something new. And so I think it's really important that you're willing to be vulnerable, but I also think it's very important that you're a self-motivated person, because as a salesperson, sometimes you're isolated on an island out here in your geography. And so you sort of have to build your team, whether that's externally or internally, the people you can call. If you're having a bad day, who is that person you can call? Say, man, I just don't have it today. Who are those people? So I think, again, it comes back to being very internal about what motivates you. I'm an uber competitive person. And so I see the data, I see, how I stack up compared to my team and my MGIC in general. And so I'm uber competitive. That motivates me. Others are motivated by different things, but for me personally, I just love to be able to get out there and win deals and see those orders come across and add value to my customers.
Is that why you got that award, the Director's Award in 2000 and it was 4 years ago, right? I saw that. What was that about? Can you tell us? Is that a result of your competitiveness and excellence?
Well, so there is an award that we get. It's a managing director award that comes at the national sales meeting. And I didn't know that you could do this, but I actually got it 2 years in a row, which is such a great honor to me. The person that gave that to me, CMB Terry Aiken, he's actually the one that motivated me to do this. So it takes into account a lot of different things. It's not necessarily just numbers and volume. And so, it's just kind of a cool award, somebody that kind of helps, team player. So it's a great award, and I was totally honored to get it, especially 2 years in a row. It's like, wow, it's cool.
That's amazing. Really
cool.
Amazing. Congratulations on this achievement.
Thank you.
I know those awards can be, as you said, very motivating, but you earn them. You earn them, every single piece of them.
Yeah, that's great.
Well, I live somewhere between the world of people and technology, because I use technology to process data. And I think the private mortgage insurance world is the same way. You have to have technology to process all these vast amounts of volume of data in order to derive insight and drive decisions or offer your pricing. But technology has been changing. Especially in the last couple of years, I would say that the artificial intelligence has accelerated with the generative AI coming to play, and companies are evaluating whether this is a lasting trend or it's a bubble of some sort. How do you think technology, and especially this newer technology, is impacting how PMI is sold and how it is managed?
Yeah, it's a great question, right? Because it feels like whether it's the mortgage industry or just any industry in general, it's evolving and changing every single day. For us, it's about the LOS systems and staying relevant and top of mind in those LOS systems, because that's what most lenders will use when they're pricing or ordering mortgage insurance. And so it's important that we stay relevant in those systems. And, to the extent that maybe there's, our pricing is close, that value add that we can bring to them, or that relationship, is that something that we can help win that deal with? MGIC's always been more about relationships and bringing that value to customers. And, that has served us very well. And the technology is just something that we're trying to adapt to as well, so that we can make sure, again, that we're just staying relevant and we have a seat at the table. And so I think down the road and in the future, that will just continue to be refined. Systems will come and go, but it will continue to be refined. And, what the cost looks like for either the consumer, the lender, all to be determined as we go. But technology and AI, it will continue to change. We just need to be able to change and adapt with it.
So well said, Danielle. I really like that a lot. And I think that no matter what happens with technology, whether we have robots, at the end of the day, humans are going to respond to humans, to those relationships,
Yeah.
to what we are best at, building those relationships, empathy, humor, all of these things. So we have to be able to talk to robots and then talk to humans. Probably that's
Yeah,
what's
right. I mean, the data kind
yeah.
of gives us a direction to go, but really it's about interaction and humans and relationships, and people need to not lose sight of the fact that this is a humongous purchase. And sometimes we get caught up in the little minutia of what it can be, but the big picture, it's a big transaction,
Yes.
and people should want to go into an office and sit down with a lender and talk about it.
I agree. Yeah.
Mhm.
And this is a whole different conversation for another time. I would love
Yeah.
to know your opinion about the one-click mortgage, but we'll reserve it for future conversation.
Okay.
But my final question is, if you had a magic wand and you had to change one thing about our industry to make it more inclusive, perhaps more efficient, more client-centric, whatever you want to focus on, what would that thing be and why?
I really think it starts in high school
Mhm.
and college with financial literacy. I think there's a big disservice and a big disconnect in this country about those kind of things. And I have two boys that are 24 and 21. And, even balancing a checkbook is a lost art. And there's something to be said for some of those old fashioned things. And I think it's really important to educate people at a younger age, help them understand finances, even into college, because when we talk our language every day, which is a lot of acronyms and everything, I would challenge somebody to ask a borrower that's already bought a home, what does DTI mean and how do you calculate it? I think those basic things, those very foundational things, are incumbent upon us as professionals to make sure we're educating people, especially those first-time home buyers. I remember this was many years ago, but when I was doing closings at the title company and I was going through a HUD settlement statement back then, and I was going through the escrow piece of it, and the lady said, "Oh, I don't even know what escrow count is." And so we're really doing a disservice to people if we can't educate them on the most basic things that we know and understand every single day. But when, especially now with taxes going up so much and insurance costs going up so much, we have to be proactive about letting the borrower know this could come down the road. So don't be surprised if this happens, and we'll work through it together. Whatever that conversation looks like for that borrower and the lender at the time, it really is all about communication. And if that starts in high school, into college, or whatever that looks like, it's important.
Thank you so much for being our guest today, Danielle. It was such a pleasure having you
Thank
on the
you.
show. And I can't wait to see the other contributions that you're going to make to the CMB Society and to the broader industry as well. Thank you again.
Yes. Thank you so much, Val. I appreciate it.
That's all for today's episode of CMB Connect. Thanks for tuning in, and remember to subscribe for more conversations with industry leaders. Until next time, keep connecting, keep learning, and keep pushing the boundaries of innovation. This is your host, Val Buras, signing off.